A routine sidewalk stop escalates instantly when Officer Lin strikes a calm, well-dressed black man without warning. The witnesses freeze. The man doesn't yell. He simply straightens his collar and says one line that changes everything. "Step back or I'll put you on the ground." Officer Lynn Carver's voice sliced through the humid Manhattan morning. Her eyes were locked on the black man, standing on the sidewalk outside the Lexington Suites Hotel, hands in his pockets, no threat in sight. The street bustled with life. Tourists dragging luggage, locals with coffee cups, a busker strumming jazz on the corner. But now, time seems to freeze. "I said move!" Lynn barked again, stepping forward. The man didn't flinch. He was tall, sharply dressed in a grey tailored suit, his shoes polished to a mirror shine. His hands remained calmly inside his coat pockets. He simply looked at her, not with fear, but with a kind of silent disappointment. "Are you deaf?" she snapped. Then, without hesitation or justification, she swung. Her knuckles cracked against his jaw with a sickening thud. Gasps erupted from the small crowd forming around them. Coffee cups dropped. Someone screamed. The man staggered half a step back, more from the impact's surprise than its force. A woman filming on her phone whispered, "Oh my God, she just hit him." The man's head turned slowly back toward Lynn. Blood at the corner of his mouth, eyes still calm. He reached up, adjusted the knot of his silk tie, then looked her dead in the eye. "I didn't move," he said quietly, "because I was waiting for your backup." "What did you say?" Lynn's face tightened. He tilted his head toward the blinking blue light atop a nearby security camera. "Because your chief told me to stay put until internal affairs arrived." The officer blinked. Internal what? The man reached into his pocket, slowly, and pulled out a black leather badge case. The crowd held its breath. The gold emblem inside reflected the sun like a mirror. United States Department of Justice. Deputy Director. The silence was louder than any siren. Lynn's mouth opened, but no sound came out. "You just assaulted the man who audits your department," he said calmly. "And now, Officer Carver, I suggest you call your supervisor." The world crashed in slow motion. Behind her eyes, around them, phones were filmed. Witnesses whispered. A child asked, "Mama, why did that lady hit the man in the nice suit?" The man licked the blood from his lip and stared at her badge. "Badge 417. That's going to be a famous number." She stumbled back half a step, stepped forward. And then he added, just loud enough for everyone to hear, "They thought I was a suspect. I wrote the policy she violated." Cut to black. Silence. Only the sound of the sirens finally pulling up. The video was online before Lynn even made it back to her car. 10 seconds of rage. One punch. One slow reveal of a golden badge. It was already on Twitter, TikTok, and YouTube. The captions wrote themselves, "Officer punches black man, then realizes who he is." She sat behind the wheel of her cruiser, hands shaking slightly, breath caught between guilt and fear. She could still feel the sting of his blood on her knuckles. It wasn't a hard punch, but it was hard enough. Her phone buzzed relentlessly in the cup holder. Unknown number, then another, then Captain Hill. She didn't answer. Couldn't. The windshield suddenly looked like a mirror. She saw herself reflected in the glass, not as a cop anymore, but as a villain. In the precinct, the energy had shifted. Conversations cut off when she entered. No one met her eyes. The usual banter, the locker room laughs, gone. A young officer named Myers gave her a look of pure disbelief. "You really didn't recognize him," he whispered. She didn't answer. Couldn't. "That's Deputy Director Elijah Kane," he added under his breath. "DOJ. He trained half our oversight team." She blinked. "Kane? You punched Kane on camera. You know what that means, right?" She opened her locker, trying to drown out the noise. But it wasn't noisy. It was true. He was more than internal affairs. He was the reason 3 departments had been dissolved last year. He was the man Mayers feared. She slammed the locker shut and stormed past the bullpen. Eyes followed, phones tilted subtly, and somewhere deep inside her chest, something started to collapse. Across the city, inside, a towering government building lined with bulletproof glass and soundproof panels, Elijah Kane walked down a quiet corridor. No noise, no phones, no crowd, just him and the echo of his own shoes. His lip was still swollen, his tie slightly askew, but his posture flawless, his stride unchanged. He entered a secure room with mirrored walls. A conference table sat. In the center, but no one was seated. A woman in a dark suit stood waiting. "Sir," she said, "it's already reached 1 million views." "Let it grow," he replied. "We're not pulling it. Press is outside. They're speculating but haven't confirmed." He sat at the table and pulled out a simple folder. Inside were photos, transcripts, body cam failures, community complaints, use of force reports. Every page had one name at the top, Officer Lynn Carver. "They will soon," he said. "We're going public." The assistant paused. "You want to lead with it?" "Absolutely." He looked her in the eye. "Let people see how silence ends." Across town, in a modest 2-bedroom apartment, Keisha Daniels re-watched the video on loop. Her hand trembled slightly, but not from fear. From vindication. She'd filed complaints against Officer Carver 2 years ago, ignored, dismissed, gaslit. "He's gonna shut them down," she whispered. "He's gonna shut her down." Her teenage son leaned over her shoulder. "Is that the guy from the training videos?" "That's him." "Dang," the boy muttered. "He didn't even hit her back." "He didn't need to," Keisha said. "That's real power." Meanwhile, at the NYPD headquarters, Captain Hill paced in his office, jaw tight. His phone rang again. City Hall. Again. "I've got nothing to say right now," he snapped into the receiver. "We're still assessing." "He's not a suspect," came the voice on the other end. "He's the one assessing you." Hill didn't answer. There was nothing to say. He turned slowly to the screen behind his desk. It showed a paused frame of the moment Kane held up his badge. The glare of gold, the officer's stunned expression. "God help us," Hill muttered. But even God might not save them now, because Kane didn't knock. Kane dismantled, Kane exposed, and he never spoke twice. Somewhere between the buildings and broadcasts, Lynn sat in the squad car, gripping the steering wheel until her knuckles turned white. She remembered his words. "They thought I was a suspect. I wrote the policy she violated." That sentence now echoed across television screens, played on repeat in newsrooms, whispered in classrooms. She wasn't just a trending story. She was a warning, a headline with no spin. Her phone buzzed again, this time a text from an unknown number. "You'll be contacted soon. Do not delete anything. Legal counsel has been dispatched." She leaned back in the seat, chest heaving. Across her reflection, the cruiser's dashcam light blinks red, still recording, still watching, just like the city. The doors of the Lexington suites opened with the same elegance they always had, the kind of quiet wealth that didn't need to brag. Elijah Kane stepped through them again, not as a victim, not as a target, but as a man carrying the storm that everyone inside had tried to ignore. Flashes erupted outside. Reporters screamed questions he didn't answer. His face was calm, but beneath that stillness was the heat of years spent collecting silence, knowing someday it would be turned into fire. "Sir, can we get a comment? Do you plan to press charges? What are your thoughts on Officer Carver's record?" The questions came like hail. He ignored them. A young woman in a grey skirt suit escorted him quietly toward the elevator, her earpiece flashing with chatter. "Conference room's cleared," she said without looking up. "Mayor's team wants to brief you privately before you say anything public." "They'll wait," he said. The elevator hummed up in silence. 30 floors, 30 seconds. Every floor another layer of noise being stripped away. By the time the doors opened, His face had become the silence itself. Meanwhile, across town, Lynn sat in a cold chair in a darker room than she expected. The review panel wasn't supposed to be ready this fast. It was. 3 faces sat across from her, one of them internal affairs, the other 2 she didn't recognize. No nameplates, no warmth, just eyes that didn't blink and hands that didn't write anything down. "Do you know why you're here?" the first asked. She nodded once. "Tell us." "The video," she said, voice dry. "The incident. Be specific." "I punched a man. He turned out to be—" Her voice cracked. "He turned out to be DOJ." The second man leaned forward. "You didn't punch a man, officer. Carver, you assaulted a federal official in broad daylight, unprovoked, on camera, and then failed to render aid. We're not here because of a misunderstanding. We're here because you're a liability." Her jaw tensed. "I didn't know who he was." "That's not a defense," the third said. "That's the problem." She shifted. "He didn't respond to my commands." "And what command did he violate?" Silence. "Standing on a sidewalk?" The man continued. "Not reacting to provocation." She didn't answer. Couldn't. "Do you know how many complaints have been filed against you in the last 18 months? "Some," she muttered. 13, he said flatly. "Including one from a woman who's been watching your videos all morning, and she's about to go public too." Her mouth opened. Nothing came out. "We're giving you one opportunity," the second officer said. "Resign quietly or face federal charges. Your pension won't survive either route, but your record might." Her throat was dry. Her hands were colder than they should have been. In her head she could still hear the slap of her fist against his jaw, and she could still see the way. He didn't react. He didn't fight. He didn't even flinch. He just waited for her to reveal herself. Back in the hotel, Kane stood in front of the glass wall overlooking the city. Below, traffic moved like blood through arteries. He didn't turn when his assistant entered. "They're ready downstairs," she said. "The whole press corps is outside. We've never had this many cameras in one place since the last department. Shutdown." "Good," he replied. "Let them watch." "And Officer Carver?" she asked. "She's not important anymore," he said. "She's just a symptom. The disease is deeper." The woman hesitated. "You really think this city's ready for what you're about to say?" He finally turned. "Doesn't matter. Silence never asked for permission. Why should truth?" Then he straightened his tie, adjusted the lapel of his jacket, and walked toward the press room as if it belonged to him. Because in that moment, it did. The press room fell silent the moment he entered. No announcement, no title card, no music, just a man in a grey suit with a bruised lip and the kind of posture that didn't ask for attention. It demanded it. The city had already seen the video. Now they would hear the voice. Elijah Kane stepped to the podium, adjusted the mic once, and let the silence stretch. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't blink too much. He didn't thank anyone for their time. He simply spoke. "Yesterday, a uniformed officer struck a citizen standing calmly on a public sidewalk. That citizen was me. But this isn't about me. This is about every name that never made it to a microphone. Every complaint that was dismissed before it was read. Every officer who was protected by silence, and every civilian punished by it. This time the camera didn't lie, and neither will I." The room stayed silent. No coughing, no papers shuffling, just eyes and recorders. He continued. "Officer Lynn Carver is not an outlier. She is a result of unchecked authority, of ignored reports, of a culture that rewards silence and punishes accountability. The department has failed, the oversight has failed, but most importantly, your trust has been broken." His words hit harder than her punch ever had. Somewhere in a backroom downtown, Lynn sat frozen in front of a flat-screen TV. She was no longer the officer in control. She was just another name being written into the collapse. "We will not be pursuing private litigation," Kane said from the podium, because we will be pursuing structural demolition. Effective immediately, our office is opening a federal review of the NYPD's use of force incidents over the last 5 years. Every complaint, every video, every body cam redaction, every officer name that shows a pattern, we're coming for it. Journalists began scribbling. Some gasped. Some looked at each other like they couldn't believe what they were hearing. But they were, and it was being streamed live. This isn't a press stunt, Kane continued. This is a reckoning. His eyes scanned the room slowly. The officer who struck me didn't ask my name, didn't ask for identification. She assumed I was guilty based on my skin, my stillness, and my silence. She mistook dignity for defiance, and she is not the only one. A reporter stood. "Sir, are you calling for mass suspensions?" "I'm calling for mass accountability," he said, "and if that results in suspensions, terminations, or entire unit dissolutions, then so be it." Another hand went up. "Do you think the mayor will back this initiative?" Kane's mouth twitched slightly. "The mayor is watching this stream right now, and if he doesn't support it, he'll be answering for that by morning." A ripple of whispers. Another reporter shouted, "Sir, what would you say to citizens who've lost faith in law enforcement?" He looked directly into the lens of the nearest live feed. "I'd say this: silence may feel like safety, but it's not justice. And justice begins with someone being brave enough to be hated for doing the right thing. Today, that someone is me, but tomorrow it could be you." He stepped back. One step, then another. No closing remarks, no spin, no quotes rehearsed by PR. Just a mic and a scar and a city that had finally been given permission to feel angry and still be right. Behind him, the seal of the Justice Department glowed on the wall. In the back room, Lynn turned off the TV. The screen went black, but the voice still rang in her head. The station halls had never been this quiet. Not even during internal lockdowns, not during protests, not during citywide alerts. But today, there was no siren, only the sound of truth finally echoing through concrete and badge-pressed fear. Rookie Officer Jaden Malik sat frozen at his desk, earbuds still playing the last seconds of Kane's press conference on loop. He wasn't supposed to be watching. He wasn't even supposed to be in this part of the building, but something in him had snapped open, something buried under years of instructions to shut up, stay neutral, follow rank. The words Kane spoke didn't just hit the city, they hit the cracks in Jaden's conscience, and now he couldn't unhear them. He couldn't unsee what he'd seen 2 weeks ago. The day Carver shoved an elderly man into the curb for talking back. No report filed. No body cam uploaded, just laughter afterward and an offhand remark. "He's lucky he didn't spit on me." Jaden had stood there, done nothing. That nothing now felt heavier than a bulletproof vest. Across the room, Sergeant DeWitt stormed in with a file clutched, so tight the pages bent at the corners. "Everyone to briefing, now!" No one moved quickly, eyes stayed low. Phones disappeared into pockets. Jaden followed, stomach twisting. The briefing room felt like a courtroom now. Captain Hill stood at the front, jaw locked tight, shoulders squared with shame he couldn't shake. "You've all seen the news," he said without greeting. "I'm not going to pretend this department isn't under siege right now. We are, and some of us deserve it." A ripple of surprise moved through the officers. Hill never admitted fault. Never flinched. Today, he did both. "There will be investigations," he continued. "Reviews, suspensions, and likely some terminations. If anyone has something to confess or footage to submit, now is the time to show the department you still deserve that badge." No one moved. Silence wrapped the room like rope. But Jaden's hand rose. The air seemed to stop. Eyes turned. Hill's brows lifted. "Malik?" Jaden stood. I have footage," he said. "From March 23rd. Bodycam wasn't officially. Logged, but I still have the backup copy. From which incident? Hill asked slowly. Officer Carver, Jaden replied. She assaulted a civilian. We never reported it. DeWitt snapped his head toward him. You were told... I was wrong, Jaden interrupted, but I'm not staying wrong. The room didn't erupt. It didn't explode. It inhaled, a slow, shared recognition that something had shifted. The rope had been cut. Outside, the precinct parking lot buzzed with reporters, sirens, and protesters. Inside, a young recruit had just shattered a wall others had spent years protecting. Meanwhile, Kane sat alone in his hotel suite, watching the feed of the precinct. From a private tablet, no sound, just body language. He saw Jaden stand, saw the ripple, saw the moment the silence cracked. He smiled faintly. Just one officer, just one voice. That's all it ever took to turn a department upside down. And this was only the beginning. The room had no corners. That's what Lynn noticed first. The edges curved subtly, making it hard to know where the walls began or ended. A one-way mirror spanned the length of the left side, and though she couldn't see who stood behind it, she could feel the heat of their eyes. The chair was metal, cold, too low for comfort. The evaluator, Dr. Jean Rowe, sat across from her, notepad in hand, expression unreadable. No badge, no insignia, just a small silver pin in the shape of an open eye. Lynn sat stiff, her arms folded, tightly across her chest. The room wasn't hostile, but it felt like confession. Do you know why you're here, Officer Carver? Dr. Rowe asked. You people love asking that, Lynn muttered. What do you think we're trying to find out? Whether I'm crazy or dangerous or both? Are you? Lynn said nothing. The silence stretched. Tell me about your first year on the force, Rowe said. Why'd you become a cop? Lynn scoffed. Same reason anyone does. Serve, protect. That's what they wrote on the recruitment poster, Rowe replied softly. Why did you join? Lynn stared past her. Because someone told me once that the badge meant something, that it was armor, that it made the world make sense. And has it? Lynn's mouth twitched. Sometimes. What about last week? Lynn inhaled. He was just standing there, like he knew I was going to react, like he wanted it. Did he provoke you? No. Did he resist? No. Then what made you hit him? Lynn's lips parted, but the words didn't come. Dr. Rowe didn't press. She just waited. He looked at me, Lynn whispered eventually. He looked at me like I was beneath him, like he expected me to fail. So you hit him to change what he saw? Lynn didn't respond. Rowe leaned forward. You've been accused of excessive force 5 times in the past 2 years. Racial bias complaints on 4, 2 dismissed, 2 unresolved, and now you're here. Sitting in this room because you hit the wrong person. Lynn's eyes snapped up. You mean the wrong kind of black man? Rowe didn't blink. I didn't say that. You didn't have to. Rowe closed her notepad slowly. You see yourself as a weapon? No, Lynn shot back. I see myself as necessary. Even when you're wrong? The streets don't run on idealism. They also don't run on unchecked fists. Lynn stood abruptly. I don't need therapy. I need a department that has my back. Your department is cracking, Rowe said. And it's not because of Kane. It's because officers... Like you made silence policy. Lynn's face reddened. I didn't ask to be the face of this mess. No, Rowe agreed. But you made yourself the symbol. Behind the mirror, Captain Hill watched quietly. Next to him stood a woman from the DOJ's Civil Rights Division. What do you see? He asked. I see a collapse happening in slow motion, she replied, and I see someone who doesn't know how to stop it. In a different part of the city, Elijah Kane sat across from Jaden Malik in a private briefing room. The footage was on screen. The shove, the laughter, the report never filed. Jaden's voice shook slightly. I didn't think it would matter. Everything matters, Kane said, especially the things you were told to forget. What happens now? You testify. We compile. We build a case not just against her, but against every supervisor who protected her. That's a lot of names. And every one of them will be read aloud. Jaden swallowed. Will I still have a job? That depends, Kane replied. Do you want to be a cop, or do you want to be part of a force that finally means something? Jaden looked down, then nodded. I want to be part of the shift. Outside, protesters grew in number. Signs read, "Justice isn't silent," and "Who polices the police?" Drones flew overhead, buses rerouted. The city was transforming in real time. Inside the precinct, Lynn returned to her locker. Her hands trembled. As she removed her vest, her radio, her badge, one by one, the things that made her feel untouchable now felt heavy. When she pulled off her uniform shirt and looked into the mirror above the sink, she didn't see a protector. She saw a person stripped of narrative, stripped of justification, and for the first time in her life, the uniform didn't give her power. It exposed her. Kane watched a feed from across the street, saw her walk out the precinct doors alone. No fanfare, no press, just footsteps, silent and small. The DOJ conference room smelled like coffee and printer ink. Not the usual kind of room for war, but today every sheet of paper on the table was a weapon. Names, dates, incidents buried under piles of paperwork. Kane stood at the head of the table, eyes scanning the faces around him. His team was small but lethal. Civil rights lawyers, data analysts, a former precinct whistleblower who'd lost his pension to truth. They were quiet, watching as Kane laid down the final page from the most recent file, a list of 24 officers, all involved in cases that never made it past internal reports. These are the ones who stood there, Kane said. Saw something, said nothing. His voice wasn't angry. It didn't need to be. The facts did the shouting. Some of them looked the other way, some laughed, some wrote fake reports, and some simply stayed quiet because they were told that was the way. A woman in the corner asked, "Are we serving them all?" "Not yet," Kane replied. "First, we offer a choice. Cooperate or be publicly named in a conspiracy investigation. And if they say no," Kane looked up, "then we show the footage." On the other side of the city, Lieutenant Karen DeLuca sat in a parked car, staring at the sidewalk in front of her like it might open up and swallow her whole. She'd been on the force 22 years, not dirty, not heroic, somewhere in between. She'd seen Carver shove people, intimidate kids, fake radio calls to justify stops, and she'd signed off on her reports, not because she agreed, but because it was easier, safer, routine. And now she was on a list. She lit a cigarette with shaking hands. The letter she'd received wasn't a subpoena, not yet. But it was a warning. She had 72 hours to respond before her name went public. She picked up her phone, dialed a number she hadn't used in years. Kane answered on the second ring. "DeLuca, I got your packet. And? I'm not a whistleblower. I'm not asking you to be." "Then what? Do you want?" "I want the truth," Kane said, "in your own words. Before someone else writes it for you." She hesitated. "If I talk, your pension might survive," Kane said. "Your conscience might too. You think that matters now? It will when this city looks at you different." She didn't answer, just ended the call and stared out the window. Across town, Lynn sat in her apartment, still in partial uniform, eyes locked on a single message glowing on her cracked phone screen. It was from Officer Darnell Ray. They'd trained together, ate lunches together, covered each other's blind spots on patrol for years, but they hadn't spoken since the video dropped. The message was short. "You need to stop blaming everyone. Else, you made this choice, not the badge." She stared at the screen for 10 full minutes before typing a reply. "You knew me better than anyone. You really think I meant to do this?" The dots appeared, then vanished, then reappeared. "That's the problem, you didn't think at all." She slammed the phone down. but the words stayed, louder than sirens. Meanwhile, Kane sat in a private briefing with city officials. The mayor was not present. Of course he wasn't, but his chief legal officer was. She looked tired, not because of the press, because she knew Kane didn't bluff. "How many officers are on your list?" she asked. 24 for now, Kane said, but that number's going to double. What do you want? Transparency, departmental cooperation, and full access to all internal affairs logs from the past 5 years. You know that could take down half our supervisors. Then they shouldn't be supervisors. This will break the department's morale. No, Kane replied. What broke morale was protecting people who never deserved the badge. The woman leaned back, eyes narrowing. And if the mayor says no? Kane didn't flinch. Then his name goes on the list too. She didn't speak again. She just nodded slowly. Across the hall, in a soundproof room, analysts reviewed hours of unused body cam footage. In one clip, Carver is heard telling a teen, "You people never learn, do you?" In another, she fakes backup calls. In a third, she laughs after slamming a man into a car hood. The footage wasn't filmed, but now it was evidence. Kane watched from the corner, arms crossed. This wasn't revenge. It was a reconstruction, rebuilding trust brick by brutal brick. Jaden Malik entered the room holding a new drive. "This just came in," he said, "from an anonymous source." Kane raised an eyebrow. "Anonymous?" "Officer," Jaden clarified, still scared, but not silent. Kane plugged in. The drive, the footage loaded. A third incident. Same officer, same pattern, different day. But it all felt the same. Kane turned to Jaden. "You ever wonder how many stories were buried?" "Every day," Jaden said, "but this time they're coming back to life." In her apartment, Lynn finally changed out of her uniform, sat on the edge of her bed, stared at the floor. There was no badge on the table, no weapon on her hip. Just silence, real silence, the kind that didn't come from being alone, but from knowing no one believed in you anymore. Not your team, not your department, not even yourself. She remembered something her father told her when she graduated from the academy. "The badge isn't a shield, Lynn. It's a mirror, and one day you'll have to face what it reflects." She thought she'd forgotten those words, but today they came back. And this time they burned. It was a 2-minute clip, silent, grainy, tucked inside a backup archive labeled "Damaged, Unfiled." No timestamp, no tags, just a number string and a blurry thumbnail. Kane's team almost skipped it, but something made the analyst pause. Maybe instinct, maybe luck. When the video played, the room stilled. There was no intro, no context, just the raw feed from Lynn Carver's chest cam. Her walking into an alley where a young man sat handcuffed against a brick wall, bleeding from the mouth. Her voice wasn't yelling, not in this one. It was quiet, controlled. "Say it again," she hissed. "Say it to my face now." The boy groaned. "I didn't say nothing." "No," she snapped. "Funny, 'cause I heard racist bitch clear as day." "I didn't say that," he murmured. She drew her baton, raised it, eased. "Tell me now. Say it. Say it like a man." The boy didn't speak. He just closed his eyes. She didn't strike. Not yet. But she leaned in close. "This is what happens when you people don't listen. This is what happens when you think your TikTok's gonna save you." Off-screen, another voice. "Lynn, cam's on." Silence, then a shuffle. The screen blacked out. That voice, it belonged to Lieutenant Bryce Noland. The same Noland who'd been honored last year for community policing. The same one who trained half the academy class. The same one who testified against a black mother's abuse claim and helped get her charges dropped. Kane sat back in his chair, eyes locked on the screen. The moment was over. The evidence wasn't. He turned to Jaden. "That voice, that's Noland?" "It matches 3 other audio clips," Jaden confirmed. He knew her cam was on and helped shut it down, which means he covered for her at least once. At least, Jaden repeated. Kane didn't need to speak further. The names were stacking. The dominoes were lined up. The next strike had to be surgical. Meanwhile, inside a dim precinct hallway, Nolan stood near the vending machines, arms crossed, eyes locked on nothing. He'd felt the shift coming for days, heard the way whispers stopped when he walked past, saw how officers avoided eye contact like it was contagious. But today was different. Today, Internal Affairs asked him to voluntarily review a video. He already knew which one. The request wasn't a request, and the wall he'd helped build around people like Carver was now crumbling from the inside. Across the city, Lynn received an unmarked envelope under her door. No return address, no name, just a flash drive inside and a folded note. You lied to everyone, but we saved it. Watch and remember who you really are. Her hands trembled as she slid the drive into her laptop. The screen lit up, the alley, the boy, her voice, her baton, the voice behind the camera warning. The cam was active. The way she muttered something foul and clicked the power button off. She'd forgotten about this, suppressed it, denied it. But the camera didn't forget, and neither did whoever kept the file hidden all this time. She slammed the laptop shut, breathing hard, rage and panic clashing like thunder inside her ribs. Who had this? Who kept it? Why now? But she already knew the answer. Someone on the inside had turned. Maybe not for justice, maybe for survival. But the blue wall wasn't holding. She grabbed her phone, texted Nolan. "We need to talk. Urgent." No response. She tried again. Nothing. In Kane's office, the strategy was already underway. Press briefings were being scheduled, subpoenas printed. Kane paced slowly. "We leak this next?" one of his aides asked. "No," Kane said. "Not yet. Nolan still thinks he can hide. Let him make the first move. Let him feel safe." "And Carver?" Kane stopped pacing. "She's already a ghost. She just hasn't realized it yet." In her apartment, Lynn stared at the badge on her table. It looked different now. Not like a symbol, not like armor, just a shape, a hollow outline. She picked it up slowly, felt its weight, its cold edges, then closed her fingers around it until it dug into her palm. She could feel her old life slipping. Through the cracks like ash. Not all at once, but piece by piece. Trust, power, fear, and now memory. The knock came softly. She opened the door, half expecting a camera crew. Instead, it was DeLuca. No smile, no welcome, just silence. "I talked." "To Kane," DeLuca said. "I'm flipping." Lynn stepped back. "You're what?" "I'm done covering for people who wouldn't spit on me if I burned. You told him about me? He already had everything. So why are you here?" "To say goodbye," DeLuca said. "You got 72 hours before the press gets your name, and when they do, don't act surprised." Lynn tried to speak. Nothing came. DeLuca left without another word. The door clicked shut. Outside, the air shifted. Inside, Lynn finally understood. The silence wasn't loyalty. It was rotten, and it was ending. The diner was old, tucked between two abandoned storefronts, the kind of place that only served black coffee and regret. Kane chose it for a reason. Neutral ground, no cameras, no whispers, just chrome stools and a jukebox that hadn't worked since the Bush administration. Across from him sat Mara Doyle, a reporter with eyes sharper than her pen. She'd been writing about police silence since college, blacklisted from 3 local newsrooms for refusing to soften her language. Now she wrote for the one outlet that couldn't be bought. "You have names?" she asked without pleasantries. "I have everything," Kane replied. He slid a folder across the table. Inside were documents stamped "Confidential," grainy photos, deleted footage backups, audio transcripts. She skimmed the top few. "Holy hell," she muttered. "They kept all this off record." "Until now," Kane said. "It's yours. Run it exactly as it's filed. No edits, no spin." "When?" Tonight. Front page. I'll give you the statement. Sources? Me. She raised an eyebrow. You're burning your own name into this. It's already burned, he said. Might as well light the rest of the match. She didn't argue. She didn't need to. This was the story she'd been waiting for since the first time she watched an officer lie under oath and walk free. As she left the diner with the folder under her arm, Kane sat back and finished his coffee in silence. Across town, the first ripple had already broken the surface. Lynn Carver's name leaked to a private forum before anyone could prepare. No context, no buffer, just a headline. Officer identified in DOJ assault video. Comments disabled. But the thread exploded anyway. Within an hour, Twitter was trending. Her name, hashtags multiplied. Carver cover-up. Blue line broken. Protect, not punish. Someone posted her academy graduation photo. Someone else posted the clip of her in the alley with the baton. Within 2 hours, news vans circled her apartment. She turned off her phone, closed her blinds, but the noise didn't stop. It lives outside now, breathed through the cracks in her walls. Her neighbors avoided eye contact. Her mail was scattered. Her badge felt radioactive. She received an email from the union, no subject line, just a message. We won't defend you. Please do not use our name publicly. She stared at the words for a full minute before deleting. It then came the voicemail, a woman's voice, shaky. You shoved my son against a gate for nothing. He never fought back. You called him a thing. He still has nightmares. Now you know how it feels to be the monster. Lynn dropped the phone. Across the city, Kane stood in front of a whiteboard in a DOJ strategy room. Red lines connected names. Arrows curved toward institutions. 4 more officers had come forward since the leak. 1 anonymously, 3 publicly. 1 had recorded her supervisor ordering a cover-up. Another turned over dash cam footage showing altered timestamps. Kane didn't smile. He didn't gloat. This wasn't a win. It was a war. Every truth brought blood. Every confession opened wounds. But it was necessary. At 7:02 p.m., the article went live. Mara Doyle didn't bury the lead. The Department of Justice confirms the identity of the officer seen striking Deputy Director Elijah Kane. Her name is Lynn Carver, and this is not her first offense. The piece listed everything: dates, complaints, video links. Kane's quote was bolded at the center. The badge is not a license, it is a responsibility. And we will hold those who abuse it accountable, no matter how protected they think they are. Lynn read the article 3 times. Then again. Her name wasn't just trending, it was scorched into the digital sky. YouTube videos dissected her. Expression. Podcasts speculated about her past. TikTok memes remixed her punch with dance music. Her identity had become a cautionary tale. A ghost story told between precincts. She sat on the floor, legs pulled to her chest. Her father had always told her to never cry in uniform. She wasn't wearing one anymore. So she cried, just once. Just enough to remember she was still human. Then she wiped her face and stood up, turned on the news, watched herself being dissected by strangers. A former professor of police ethics called her a tragic case study of unchecked ego. A community organizer said she didn't just fall, she represents how deep the rot goes. She muted the TV. The silence was worse. Meanwhile, Kane prepared for a second press conference. This one would announce the next phase. Internal. Charges filed against 3 supervisors, 1 lieutenant, and an administrative officer who had tampered with evidence. He looked over the list one last time. Carver was no longer at the top. The list was long now, and it was still growing. He leaned on the podium backstage, hands tight on the edge. "You good?" Jaden asked beside him. Kane didn't answer, at first. Then quietly, We're about to become the villains in every department across the country. Jaden nodded. Sometimes the villain's just the one holding the mirror. Kane smiled faintly. Let's go show them the reflection. The second press conference didn't start with a greeting. Kane didn't thank the media, didn't welcome the audience, didn't smile. He stepped up to the podium, looked directly into the camera and began with 4 names. Each one an officer, each one now under investigation, each one facing criminal charges. Behind him, on a screen, flashed the phrase, "Accountability is not optional." The room was silent. Reporters didn't ask questions yet. They were too busy processing the implications. Kane didn't flinch. These officers are not scapegoats. They are the foundation of a failed culture, a culture that rewarded silence, discouraged intervention, and prioritized image over impact. That culture ends today. He laid down a folder. This document details every internal complaint filed and buried. We've reopened them all. The city will not heal through apologies. It will heal through truth. In the back, Jaden stood with his arms folded. He wasn't a rookie anymore. Not today. Today, he was a witness, a reckoner, an example that not everyone behind the badge had sold their voice. As Kane finished, a reporter finally raised her hand. Is Officer Lynn Carver cooperating? She hasn't responded to official contact, Kane said, but her silence is louder than any statement. Another voice. Is she going to be arrested? We're working with legal counsel to ensure a fair and transparent process. Does she still have access to department systems? No, Kane said. She is no longer trusted with the tools of enforcement. Across the city, Lynn watched from her kitchen floor. Same cracked phone screen, same badge, sitting untouched on the table. She didn't cry this time. She didn't scream. She just listened. When the press conference ended, she stayed seated, staring at the television long after the broadcast returned to weather reports and pharmaceutical ads. A knock broke the silence. She didn't answer. A second knock, slower. Then a thud. A small envelope dropped through the mail slot. She waited, gave it a full 10 minutes, then walked over and picked it up. No return name, no logo, just her name, handwritten. She opened it. Inside was a single page. The handwriting was messy, angry at first, but it softened as it went. You probably don't remember me. I'm the kid from the alley, the one you cornered, the one who didn't. Fight back. You said I called you something. I didn't. You hit me anyway. I used to think about hurting you, about finding you one day and making you feel what I felt, but then I saw the video, and I saw your face, and I realized you already feel it. So this isn't a threat. This is a mirror. You used to wear a badge. Now you wear what you did, and I hope someday you wear what you learn. That's all. No name signed. Just a blank line. Lynn sat down slowly. The paper shook in her hand, not from fear, from shame, the kind she hadn't let herself feel in years, not because she thought she was innocent, but because she thought her silence made her invincible. Now she knew better. Meanwhile, Kane returned to his office, exhausted but unshaken. He sat down across from Mara Doyle, who was already assembling her next headline. That was direct, she said. They'll call it a witch hunt. They already are, Kane replied. But this witch fights back. She leaned forward. You really think this ends with a few terminations? No, he said. But it starts there, and that's more than this city's ever had. Across town, officers packed up desks, some quietly, some with slurs muttered under breath. The line had been drawn. Those who crossed it now stood alone. Captain Hill turned in his resignation before the day ended. DeLuca submitted her testimony, in writing. Noland had not been seen since morning. And Jaden, he stayed behind in full uniform, doing the one thing no one expected him to do, stay. Because someone had to. Someone had to remind the city what justice could look like when the badge was worn by the right hands. That night, as the headlines flashed across every major network, Kane stood by the window of his suite, phone in hand. A text from an unknown number blinked on screen. It read, "She's cracking, but she won't come easy." He didn't reply. He already knew that. Lynn Carver had one move left, and whatever it was, it would define everything. That came next. The address came in at 3:11 a.m. No name, no threat, just a location Kane hadn't been to in years. An old police community outreach building that had shut down after budget cuts. No cameras, no patrols, no eyes. The kind of place that silence could still live. He arrived before sunrise. Jaden had wanted to come with him. Kane said no. This meeting wasn't for witnesses. He stepped inside the dim hallway, past broken lockers and dusty posters about neighborhood watch programs that had failed before they started. The air smelled of mold and old leather. In the back office, Lynn was already waiting. She wore no badge, no weapon, just a grey sweatshirt and jeans, her hair pulled back, her eyes swollen from nights without sleep. Kane didn't speak. He simply shut the door behind him. She looked at him like she was trying to remember how to be human. "You came alone," she said. "So did you," he replied. She pulled a small folder from her bag and slid it across the desk. "I'm not here to beg," she said. "I figured. I'm not here to confess either." Kane raised an eyebrow. "Then why are you here?" "To show you what you missed." He opened the folder. Inside were 6 photos, surveillance stills, documents, a thumb drive taped to the back. "What is this?" "The real list," she said. "Supervisors, commanders, IA officers. They didn't just ignore complaints. They coached us through them, told us how to write the reports, showed us how to blur body cam footage. Some even helped plant evidence. I can name 12 right now." Kane didn't blink. "Why now?" "Because I was stupid," she said, looking down. "I thought I was just following orders, but I wasn't. I was becoming them. And I can't fix that, but I can take them down with me." Kane looked at the photos again. "Why give this to me? Why not leak it?" "Because they'll say, I faked it, that I'm trying to save myself. Aren't you?" "No," she said quietly. "I'm done, but they're still in charge. Still hiding behind their clean records. If I go down and they stay standing, none of this means anything." Kane pocketed the drive. "You understand this means you'll testify, on record, no immunity, no deals." "I don't want a deal," she said. "I want a reckoning." The word hung between them like smoke. He stood. "You'll be contacted officially in the morning. Transport statement. You'll be protected, but you won't be spared." "I don't expect to be," she replied. "And for the record, I'm not doing this for redemption." "Good," he said, "because you're not getting any." He left without another word. Outside, the sun was just beginning to rise. It didn't feel like a new day. It felt like the storm had finally hit. Back at DOJ, Kane inserted the drive into a secure terminal. Jaden watched silently as file after file popped open. Audio recordings, internal memos, videos of high-ranking officers saying the quiet parts loud. "She had this the whole time?" Jaden asked. "She was part of it," Kane said. "She had to." "So what happens now?" "Now," Kane replied, "now we burn the rest of the rot." At precinct headquarters, the tension snapped the moment the press got wind of the files. Names leaked, emails exposed. A commander resigned mid-interview. The mayor issued a panicked statement. The governor called for a special session, and in the chaos, one truth became unmissable. Lynn Carver had delivered the match. Kane stood in the conference room as media swarmed the building, but he didn't speak yet. He was waiting. waiting until every name was verified, every document authenticated, waiting for the moment the city couldn't deny what it already knew. That corruption didn't wear a mask. It wore a badge. It gave speeches. It shook hands. And now, for the first time, it would answer. That night, in a private holding room, Lynn sat in silence. A guard brought her a meal. She didn't touch it. She just stared at her reflection in the mirrored glass, wondering what people would say about her when the dust finally settled. Not because she wanted to be remembered, but because she wanted people to remember what silence costs. Across town, Kane prepared the final statement, the one that would name names, the one that would spark not just firings, but indictments. Jaden stood beside him, papers in hand. "Are you ready?" he asked. "Not really," Kane said. But justice never waits for comfort, and outside the city braced for the truth. The room was packed, not just with reporters, but with people, citizens, families who'd lost someone, kids who had grown up fearing uniforms, old men in faded jackets holding signs that read, "Justice speaks now." Kane stood behind the podium, face calm, hands still, breath steady. Jaden stood beside him, holding the final report. 57 names, officers, supervisors, internal affairs agents, city officials, all complicit, all exposed. The screen behind them showed one phrase in white block letters. "Truth isn't optional." Kane didn't speak right away. He let the silence breathe, let the cameras roll, let every person watching feel the gravity of what was about to be said. Then he began. "For too long, this department, like many across this country, has confused silence for discipline, force for authority, and fear for respect. What you're about to hear is not just a list of names. It is a map, a roadmap of everything that went wrong, and it starts with the people who knew better and chose not to act." He began reading one name, their rank, their department, their violations. The screen updated in real time, each name burned into the public memory. As the list continued, murmurs rippled through the crowd. Some gasped, others wept. Officers long thought untouchable were being named. Lieutenants who built their careers on public trust were being unmasked as architects of abuse. Kane didn't flinch. "This isn't the end," he said. "This is the beginning of accountability. Every file, every case, every silence, we are reopening them. The people failed by this system will finally be heard." He looked straight into the camera. "If you are watching this and you've been waiting for justice, we're coming. If you are watching this and you've been hiding behind silence, we're coming for you too." The room erupted in applause. But Kane didn't smile. He wasn't here for cheers. He was here to finish what had started with one punch and a broken assumption. At that same moment, Lynn Carver stood in front of a courthouse, flanked by 2 officers. No cuffs, just presence. The charges had been filed. Her trial was pending. Her name was beyond redemption. Protesters lined the sidewalk. Some shouted, some just stared. One woman held a photo of her brother, a face swollen from an old arrest, a smile that didn't survive. Lynn didn't look away. She just nodded. Once not as an apology, but as acknowledgement, that she saw it now, that she knew. Inside, her lawyer spoke, but she barely heard. The walls didn't echo anymore. Her own voice didn't echo anymore. She was no longer an officer, no longer protected, just a person carrying the full weight of every silence she'd ever enforced. The press swarmed her. She didn't speak. She had nothing left to say. Meanwhile, back at DOJ headquarters, Jaden stared out the window as Kane stepped into the hallway, his shoulders heavier than before. "You did it," Jaden said. "No," Kane replied. "We started it. Now the city decides what to do with it." That night, the streets were quieter than usual, not from fear, from reflection. Buildings lit up with banners. Community first, protect, not punish. Schools held moments of silence. Churches rang bells. In one corner of the city, a small group gathered around a candlelight vigil for those whose names never made it to court. Kane stood at the edge, unnoticed, hands in his pockets. Jaden stood beside him. "You believe in redemption?" he asked. Kane looked ahead. "I believe in memory, and that's how change happens. Not through forgiveness, through remembering." "What about her?" Jaden asked. "Carver?" Kane didn't answer for a moment. Then quietly, "She'll live. But the badge won't protect her anymore. And that's justice." Somewhere, Lynn sat in a holding cell, reading the same article as everyone else, her name, her rank, her fall, but also her role in the end. They called her many things: corrupt, violent, dangerous, but some called her the one who flipped the board. She didn't cry, didn't speak. She simply folded the paper and stared at the wall. The silence wasn't comforting, but it was clean. Kane left the vigil with no ceremony, no statement, just a quiet nod to the crowd and a promise whispered only to himself. Never again. The next morning, billboards across the city lit up with a message: "This city remembers," and for the first time in a long time, people believed it.